Now we are joined by two iconic figures in Irish rock history, Eamon Carr and Jim Lockhart from Horslips. Of course, over 50 years of their unique fusion of Irish traditional music and Celtic fusion as well, and a bit of mythology in there. And of course, they've left an indelible mark on the music scene here.
Today they're here to tell us all about their brand new box set, the Horslips at the BBC. But before we chat to the lads, have a look at them in action.
Silver in the sun. If you see me coming, you had better run, run, run. From Carrickdoon, from Carrickdoon, from Carrickdoon, from Carrickdoon.
We have Jim and Eamon in our Dublin studio. Guys, great to have you on the show. Jim, can we start with you? What's it like looking back over 50 years of music?
It can be strange enough at times, but you get some great buzzes out of it, because at the various stages of when we've been remastering stuff that came out all those years ago, when we went back and dug out the tapes, dusted them off and listened to them forensically to do reissues and remastering and stuff like that, it was very gratifying to hear some of the little subtleties and touches that were in there. There was some really nice production going on. It was great. It was very gratifying, because you forget, oh God, there was a Jew's harp in there. Oh God, there was a little bit of mandolin going through that. Oh, listen, there's a piano going up through that. There's lovely little things, that surprises that sort of pop out and give you a little smile. It's nice to hear. So it's surprising to hear the BBC stuff, because that wasn't stuff that we were familiar with over the years. That kind of only got dug out of the archives, and indeed some of it wasn't even in the BBC archives. A friend of ours in Belfast kind of canvassed people to see who had off-air recordings over the years, and stuff came to light that hadn't been heard in quite a long time.
And it's funny, Jim, probably you did so much over the years that you kind of forgot some of the stuff until it popped up there again. I think the fusion, when you listen to Carrickdoon or Jarrett Dunn there, and it's kind of all about Cuchulainn and mythology and all that, did you kind of really work on that side of things when you were writing in the beginning? Did you say, I want to kind of mix Celtic fusion and Irish mythology? How did that whole sound come around in the beginning?
It kind of grew up because we were playing rock and roll, but we were also playing traditional music, because everybody had a kind of a traditional side to them as well as a rock and roll side. Eamon's grandfather had a Cayley band. Barry came down from around Lough Neagh with a whole bunch of traditional songs from around there. Charles came over from the north of England with a bunch of songs from Durham and Northumberland. Johnny Fian had been playing around Clare with Ted Fury, as well as playing electric guitar. He was also playing mandolin and banjo. And I had the sort of mixture of classical and traditional, as well as everybody was listening to rock and roll under the bedclothes at night. So we all had that kind of blend on, one ear would be rock and roll, one ear would be traditional. And then at the time, in 1969, Thomas Kinsel's translation of the new translation of the Táin came out, and that was a kind of game changer. That was equivalent to, in sort of literary terms, that was equivalent to what Sean O'Rea did for the music in 1960, 1959, 1960 with the music for Misha Eyre and Saoirse. And then Eamon got deeply into the Lady Gregory and all that stuff. So that was kind of Eamon's baby.
I mean, a really strange one. I was up in the Pearse Museum on the weekend, and I'd been there before, but this time I was looking at an exhibit cabinet, and in it was a list, and it was a list of comrades who had been on hunger strike during the War of Independence, and one of the names on the list was, and it was a signature with the address, was my grandfather on my mother's side, Ginnity, and there was his library. He would have been part of that movement. So he would have had all of those old books on Irish mythology and it was just Gaelic folklore. And so I would have grown up reading all that stuff. And so it just sort of felt natural to write about our own superheroes as opposed to inventing, rock and roll ones. So it was a bit of fun.
It must have been a very exciting time, Jim, in one sense, because, like, say, you're bringing two kind of real pillars of music together. You have rock music and you have our own traditional music that goes back all the way to the Táin and everything, if you like, in our imaginations. And what was it like to realise that you were creating something new?
It happened fairly organically, and there's because rock and roll developed out of the fusion between American country music, white country music, and black blues music, effectively, to simplify it down. And American country music was a development of Scottish and Irish. A large part of it was from Scottish and Irish folk music and jigs and reels. And you can still hear the same tunes. And so the folk music in general internationally tends to be pentatonic based. So, it's a 5-note scale in a lot of cases. That's a kind of an international thing. Blues is a 5-note scale. Country music is a 5-note scale. And we found that there were a lot of correspondences there, so that the two melded in unexpected ways. And we also found that there were kind of sonic parallels between the sound of, like, for example, slide guitar and pipes, and we were finding stuff like that. It was a real journey of exploration and discovery. It was great fun for us. I mean, it was great crack, as opposed to sitting down and figuring out the sort of theoretical ways forward. It was just let's give that a lash. Throw some more stuff at the wall there and see what sticks.
See what sticks. I mean, no, it's really. Look, we're just looking at shots here. There,
somebody was going to do this, and we just happened to do it. But the other thing was a really exciting time creatively, because there was a lot of happy accidents, and every now and again we'd stop and go, wow, what's happened there? Well, that's very interesting. I mean, when Johnny Fionn came up with the riff for Jarek Doom, we was, holy God, that's astounding. And then when we put a beat behind it, got a lyric together, and it really worked. And then when audiences started dancing to it, that was even better. So it was great crack.
Yeah.
And when you broke up, I think, was it 1980 you broke up kind of abruptly and then came back together again in the 2000s. But we're going to show a piece now, and I just think even putting your music with an orchestra behind it shows another facet again. Let's take a look.
You can't be crying when you're traveling. It won't be me that's crying anyway. So take your time, don't you go. I'll be waiting, you know I'll be waiting. So take your time, don't you go. I'll be waiting, you know I'll be waiting.
I think you've a lot
That's a whole different sound.
But you have a lot of singers doing that now in 2024.
Do, yeah. Oh, yeah, but you did it so early.
You were ahead of the curve.
You were, Eamon.
Yeah, well, look, the melodies were there, and we were just using those melodies, and those melodies are wonderful, and we managed to pick some very good ones. And then the guys, everybody brought an influence into the mix, and it sort of really worked out, and we edited. And our producer, Alan Duffy, would say to us, are you happy with that? Yeah. And we would say, oh, yeah. And he'd say, no, are you really happy with that? Because you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. And so we would think about it, and we would have another go. And so, yeah, there was something there that we knew, we were dealing with something that was centuries old, and we were just giving it a modern twist. We were very, very excited, by and large, of the way things were turning out.
Yeah, Jim, as Maura mentioned that the band finished up around 1980 and came back in, I think it was 2004. Was there any talk of the band coming together around 1990 with Italian 90 when Jarek Doom came back into play?
No, because we had turned sideways to the sun at that stage, and we were gone underground and didn't really resurface. I mean, it was between 1980 we came back together. We went back on a stage for the first time in 2009, so 29 years, which is a long kind of break. But when Larry Mullen did the football song, the Italian 90 song, That was a great surprise to us. We were delighted to hear it because
Yeah.
he put a great fusion together of the various elements.
Oh,
and,
brilliant.
And it really kind of caught the zeitgeist, you
Yeah.
know.
It brings us all
it's
back.
Great, it's great fun.
It does,
Like I have an 11-year-old now, and he knows that tune now through that song, if you know what I mean.
And they nearly ask you,
Yeah.
oh, how do you know that? You know the way when your kids say things to you, oh, do you know this one? Or you're
Yeah.
singing along to stuff. They're like, do you
Yeah.
know that? It's funny, isn't it? Listen,
But,
I mean, it's iconic.
Come here, guys. Just before you go, tell us all about this box set that you have coming out.
That's another cool thing now
Yeah.
as well, because people are kind of surface again with the CDs, aren't they?
Well, there was a bundle of stuff in the BBC archives, which so there was a couple of Peel sessions from the early 70s. There was
In concert.
There was 2 in concerts, one from the early 70s, one from 1979. And then there were various bits of TV. There was an Old Grey Whistle Test. The Old Grey Whistle Test was
Yeah.
like the primary TV vehicle for rock music at the time, with Whispering Bob Harris. And there was actually the video for Man Who Built America is on this as well, which we didn't have, which we hadn't seen in years. Somebody found it on the BBC being introduced, and he had been writing it late. I mean, he was a great teacher. So yeah, it was fun to see this kind of coming together. And then also there's the original broadcast mix of that orchestral concert with the Ulster Orchestra from Belfast. And there's
Outtakes from short stories. But the funny thing is, you know, as fans, as music fans, I would have been buying the Beatles at the BBC and Fleetwood Mac at the BBC and Led Zeppelin at the BBC. And now we have Horslips at the BBC. And it sort of feels great.
It must be a great feeling.
know, it's bizarre.
It must be a great feeling.
Well, we're looking forward to getting it.
It is actually, yeah. But the weird thing is, you know, I mean, those BBC sessions back in the day when we were listening to music before we were in the band were always really exciting. But when it came our turn to do a BBC session, the reality wasn't quite what you expected. Essentially, you rocked up in your van on your way to Birmingham or somewhere to do another gig, rushed in the gear. The engineers were used to doing this. They'd just say, set them up, bum, bum, bum. Okay, lads, play. You'd record the number once or twice, gear back into the van, and off you go. And that was it. So the excitement and the glamour wasn't there. But in fact, the glamour really was in, as I say, on the tape or whatever at the time. So it was great. It was really exciting. And we didn't actually meet John Peel, obviously.
we hung around a lot with his producer, John Walton.
Yeah. It was the producers and the engineers.
So got it together.
But it was really exciting because you hit and run, you know.
Well, we're glad you brought all this together for your fans, especially after all these years. Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Eamon and the box set,
thank you.
Horslips at the BBC, is going to be released on the 4th of July. So you've got
On the 4th of July.
Brilliant.
We're looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
I think there's 3 CDs and a DVD.
That's
there.
right,
Anyway.
yeah. So people, a whole collection.
Yeah.